The cargo in my trailer changes between way stations on Clinton Road, transforming from legitimate freight into things that shouldn't exist in any shipping manifest. I'll load up with auto parts in Newark, but by the time I reach the Pine Barrens, my bills of lading show I'm hauling coffins filled with something that scratches at the wood from the inside. The weight stays exactly the same, 53,000 pounds gross, but the sounds coming from the trailer get stranger with every mile, like my cargo is rearranging itself, reorganizing, preparing for delivery to customers who placed orders no living person should fulfill. My name's Vincent Torino, and I've been running freight through North Jersey for 8 years. Started right after my discharge from Fort Dix. Figured the discipline would translate well to long-haul trucking. What I didn't figure was ending up broke in Patterson, living in a studio above Sal's Deli on Market Street, trying to make rent on a dispatcher's salary that barely covered my child support payments to my ex-wife Angela back in Trenton. That's when Dominic Castellano offered me the Clinton Road contract. Dom runs a small operation out of a warehouse in West Milford, handling specialty deliveries for clients who pay cash and don't ask for tracking numbers. The money was good, 3 times what I made running standard routes from Port Elizabeth to Philadelphia. All I had to do was follow a specific schedule and stick to certain protocols. Simple enough, or so I thought. Clinton Road stretches through some of the most isolated parts of Passaic County, winding past Cross Castle and through sections of forest where cell towers don't reach, and AM radio picks up stations that stopped broadcasting in the 1970s. During daylight runs, it's just another backcountry highway cutting through pine and oak. But at night, when I'm hauling Dom's special cargo, the road becomes something else entirely. The GPS on my dashboard stops working properly once I hit Clinton Road, showing my location as coordinates that place me in cemeteries, abandoned hospitals, sites where buildings burned down decades ago. But the road keeps stretching ahead, longer than it should be, winding through New Jersey pine forests that grow thicker and darker the deeper I drive. And sometimes, when I check my mirrors to see how the trailer's tracking, I catch glimpses of hands pressed against the inside walls. Pale fingers splayed against aluminum siding like prisoners begging to be let out. I should have walked away after the first run. Should have gone back to Dom and told him to find another driver. But Angela needed surgery for her gallbladder, and my daughter Emma was starting college at Rutgers. The money kept coming, regular as clockwork, deposited into my account every Friday morning, whether I understood what I was hauling or not. 3 months into the Clinton Road contract, Dom handed me a laminated card with 7 protocols, printed in faded ink. He called them guidelines for maintaining cargo integrity during transport. I call them the rules that keep me alive when I'm driving through parts of New Jersey that shouldn't exist on any map. Hauling freight that changes between way stations like it's got a mind of its own. Tonight's run starts in 40 minutes. I've got coffee brewing and my thermos filled. The protocols are tucked into my sun visor, though I've memorized every word by now. Because on Clinton Road, forgetting the rules means you become part of someone else's cargo manifest. The warehouse in West Milford sits behind a Wawa and a shuttered Blockbuster, looking like any other freight operation except for the razor wire coiled around the loading dock. Dom's got 3 bays, but only the middle one stays active after sunset. The other 2 are welded shut, though sometimes I hear machinery running behind those steel doors. Conveyor belts and hydraulic lifts moving cargo that never shows up on any manifest. I backed my Peterbilt up to Bay 2 at exactly 11:47 p.m., 3 minutes ahead of schedule. Dom's nephew Tony emerged from the office trailer, clipboard in hand, wearing the same stained Carhartt jacket he's worn every night for 3 months. Kid's maybe 25 with nervous energy and fingernails bitten down to the quick. "Evening, Vince. Standard load tonight. furniture and appliances heading to a distribution center in Hackettstown. Tony handed me the bill of lading, his hands shaking slightly. Should be a smooth run. The paperwork looked legitimate. Dining room sets from a manufacturer in Elizabeth. Washing machines from a warehouse in Union City. Standard freight, standard weights, standard delivery addresses. But Tony wouldn't meet my eyes when he passed me the clipboard, and that's when I knew tonight would be different. The loading crew worked in silence, their faces hidden behind reflective safety vests. 4 guys I'd never seen before, moving boxes and wrapped furniture with practiced coordination. No conversation, no radio playing, just the sound of dollies rolling across concrete and the hydraulic whine of the lift gate. By 12:30 a.m., they'd secured everything with cargo straps and closed the trailer doors. Tony walked around the rig once, checking tire pressure and making notes on his clipboard that I couldn't read from the cab. When he finished, he approached my driver's side window. "Dom wanted me to remind you about the protocols," Tony said, glancing toward the office trailer where warm light spilled through Venetian blinds. "First run on the new route configuration." "New route?" "Yeah, some construction on Route 23. You'll need to take Clinton Road all the way through to 515 North." Tony pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket. "Updated protocols. Dom says follow them exactly, no deviations." I unfolded the paper under my dome light. 7 rules printed in faded blue ink, numbered and specific. 1. Do not stop between mile marker 7 and mile marker 14. 2. If cargo shifts during transport, maintain current speed and direction. 3. Acknowledge any radio transmissions with "copy that base" only. 4. Keep interior cab temperature below 65 degrees at all times. 5. Do not inspect cargo until reaching designated checkpoint. 6. If trailer weight increases during transport, continue to destination. 7. Exit vehicle only at authorized rest areas marked with orange reflectors. "What's with the temperature requirement?" I asked, but Tony was already walking back toward the office. "Just follow the list, Vince. Dom's orders." I folded the protocols and tucked them behind my sun visor, next to my CDL and a photo of Emma from our high school graduation. The engine turned over smooth, 18 gears engaging as I pulled away from the loading dock and onto the access road. Clinton Road starts innocuously enough, branching off Route 23 near the Newfoundland borough line. During daylight, it's a scenic drive through deciduous forest and past small lakes where people fish for bass and pickerel. But at 1:15 a.m., with no streetlights and gaps between houses stretching for miles, it becomes something else entirely. My headlights cut through darkness thick as velvet, illuminating pine branches that seemed to lean closer to the asphalt than I remembered. The CB radio crackled with static, occasionally picking up fragments of conversation from truckers on distant highways. I kept the volume low and the air conditioning running, watching the temperature gauge hold steady at 62 degrees. Mile marker 7 appeared in my peripheral vision, a reflective green sign barely visible through the trees. According to the protocols, this was where I couldn't stop for any reason until mile marker 14. 7 miles of uninterrupted driving through forest that seemed to press against both sides of the road. That's when I heard the first sound from the trailer. A soft thump, like furniture settling during transport. Normal enough. Loads shift, especially on winding roads. But then it came again, and again, developing a rhythm that didn't match the truck's movement or the road surface beneath my tires. Thump, thump, thump. I adjusted my mirrors, checking the trailer's tracking. Everything looked normal from the outside, but the sound continued, growing more distinct with each mile. Not furniture settling, something deliberate, like someone knocking on the interior walls. The radio crackled to life. Unit 47, this is base. Confirm your position. Copy that, base, I responded, remembering Protocol 3. Nothing else, just the required acknowledgement. Unit 47, maintain current speed and heading. Cargo is temperature sensitive. Temperature sensitive furniture? That didn't make sense, but I kept the air conditioning running and my speed steady at 45 miles per hour. The knocking from the trailer grew louder, developing a pattern. 3 quick taps. Pause. 3 more taps. Pause. Mile marker 10 flashed past. 3 miles to go before I could pull over and check the load. The forest pressed closer, pine branches scraping against the trailer's sides like fingernails on aluminum. In my side mirror, I caught a glimpse of something pale moving behind the trailer doors. Probably just reflection from my running lights, but it made my hands tighten on the steering wheel. The radio crackled again. Unit 47, do not deviate from assigned route. Cargo manifest is updated in real time. Updated manifest? I glanced at the paperwork clipped to my dashboard. The bill of lading still showed furniture and appliances, same as when Tony handed it to me. But the knocking from the trailer suggested my cargo had other ideas about what it wanted to be. 2 miles to mile marker 14. 2 miles before I could stop and figure out what was happening in my trailer. The temperature gauge held steady at 62 degrees, and outside, the New Jersey pine forest seemed to stretch on forever. Mile marker 14 emerged from the darkness like salvation, its reflective surface catching my headlights just as the knocking from the trailer reached a fever pitch. The sounds had evolved from simple taps into something more complex. Scratching, scraping, and what sounded distinctly like muffled voices calling out in languages I didn't recognize. I pulled into the authorized rest area marked with orange reflectors, a small gravel turnoff that hadn't existed on any of my previous runs through this stretch of Quinton Road. The reflectors formed a perfect circle around a picnic table and a rusted trash barrel, but the table looked decades old, its wood weathered gray and carved with initials that seemed to shift in the headlight glare. The radio crackled. Unit 47, you are authorized for a 15-minute inspection period. Do not exceed time limit. Copy that, base, I replied, though no one had told me about any time restrictions. I stepped out of the cab, my boots crunching on gravel that felt too soft, like walking on crushed bone. The forest around the rest area was silent. No crickets, no rustling leaves, no distant highway traffic, just the steady idle of my Peterbilt and those sounds from the trailer. Protocol 5 said not to inspect cargo until reaching the designated checkpoint. This had to be it. The orange reflectors marked it clearly as an authorized area. I walked around to the back of the trailer, my flashlight beam dancing across the aluminum doors. The scratching stopped. Everything went quiet, like the cargo inside was holding its breath, waiting to see what I'd do next. I checked the seal on the trailer doors. Still intact. The plastic zip tie Dom's crew had installed back at the warehouse. But the metal around the door frame looked different somehow, warped and scarred, as if something had been trying to claw its way out from the inside. I broke the seal. The doors swung open with a groan of protesting hinges, and my flashlight revealed an interior that defied every law of physics I thought I understood. The trailer should have been 53 feet long, but the beam of my light seemed to stretch into darkness that went on forever. The cargo wasn't furniture anymore, if it ever had been. Wooden crates lined both sides of the trailer, stacked floor to ceiling in rows that extended beyond what my light could reach. Each crate was marked with symbols instead of shipping labels, spirals, intersecting triangles, and characters that looked like they belonged in a medieval manuscript rather than on freight documentation. One of the crates near the doors had partially split open, revealing contents that made my stomach lurch. Not furniture, not appliances. Something organic and pale, folded in on itself like a sleeping animal. But animals don't have that many joints, and they don't whisper your name when you shine a light on them. "Vincent," it said, the voice soft and wet. "Vincent Torino, Fort Dix, Patterson, Angela, Emma." I stumbled backward, my flashlight beam wavering. The thing in the crate knew my personal information, details I'd never shared with Dom or Tony or anyone connected to this operation. How could cargo know about my military service, my ex-wife, my daughter? The radio in my cab crackled to life. "Unit 47, inspection time at 12 minutes. Secure cargo and proceed to destination." 12 minutes? I'd been looking into the trailer for maybe 2. But my watch showed 2:17 a.m., which meant I'd been standing here for exactly 12 minutes since pulling into the rest area. The numbers didn't add up, but then again, nothing about this run made sense anymore. I started to close the trailer doors, but the thing in the damaged crate shifted, revealing more of itself. Pale skin stretched over a frame that seemed to have too many bones, joints bending in directions that human anatomy doesn't allow. Its face, if you could call it that, was a collection of features that didn't quite fit together, like someone had assembled it from photographs of different people. "Don't leave us here, Vincent," it pleaded. "We've been traveling so long, so very long. Just a few more miles to our new home." "What are you?" I managed to ask, though my throat felt like sandpaper. "We're what happens when people disappear on Clinton Road," it replied. "The ones who break the protocols, the ones who stop where they shouldn't, look where they're not supposed to see, ask questions that don't have answers anyone wants to hear." More voices joined in from the other crates, a chorus of whispers that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Don't break the protocols, Vincent. Don't become cargo like us. Just drive. Just deliver us to where we need to go." I slammed the trailer doors shut and secured them with a new zip tie from my toolkit, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the plastic seal. The voices continued, muffled now but still audible through the aluminum walls. Back in the cab, I checked the bill of lading again. The paperwork had changed while I was outside. Instead of furniture and appliances, it now listed relocated personnel and reassignment materials with delivery addresses that were just coordinates. No street names, no cities, just latitude and longitude points that my GPS couldn't interpret. The radio crackled. "Unit 47, proceed to coordinates 41.0982, negative 74.4536. Deliver cargo to receiving team. Do not deviate from route." I plugged the coordinates into my GPS, but the screen showed only static. The built-in navigation system couldn't make sense of the numbers, displaying error messages in languages that used alphabets I'd never seen before. But somehow, I knew which direction to go. The knowledge sat in my head like someone had planted it there, guiding me deeper into the Pine Barrens, along roads that didn't appear on any map. The cargo had stopped making noise, but I could feel their presence behind me. Dozens of pale things in wooden crates, riding along Clinton Road toward a destination that existed somewhere between the coordinates on my paperwork and the reality I thought I understood. My watch showed 2:23 a.m., but the radio clock read 4:17, and the odometer was spinning forward faster than my actual speed should have allowed. Time and distance were becoming negotiable concepts, subject to revision based on whatever forces controlled this stretch of New Jersey highway. I kept the air conditioning running, maintaining the required temperature below 65 degrees, though I wasn't sure why that mattered anymore. The protocols were still tucked behind my sun visor, But I was beginning to understand they weren't really rules for cargo transport. They were instructions for surviving something much more complex, a system that used 18-wheelers and professional drivers to move things that couldn't be shipped through normal channels. The forest pressed closer to both sides of the road, pine branches scraping against my mirrors like fingers, trying to grab hold of the truck. In the distance, I could see lights that didn't belong to any building or cell tower, steady glows that pulsed in rhythm with something I felt in my chest rather than heard with my ears. My CB radio picked up a transmission from another driver. "This is Unit 23 eastbound on the Pine Barrens route. Anyone else seeing the lights tonight?" "Copy that, Unit 23, came another voice. "Third run this week. Cargo's getting restless." "Unit 47, the first voice called. "Vincent, you out there? Your first time hauling the special freight?" I keyed the microphone. "Copy that, base," remembering Protocol 3. No other communication allowed. "Smart man," Unit 23 replied. "Follow the protocols and you'll be fine. Break them." His transmission cut to static. The coordinates were getting closer, according to the compass on my dashboard. Whatever was waiting at 41.0982, negative 74.4536, would be expecting delivery of cargo that had once been people, travelers who'd made the wrong choices on Quinton Road and found themselves packaged for shipping to destinations that existed in the spaces between what maps could show. I pressed harder on the accelerator, eager to finish this run and collect my payment. The protocols had kept me safe so far, and I had Angela's medical bills to consider, Emma's college expenses to cover. Behind me, the cargo whispered my name in voices that sounded more human with every mile. The GPS finally locked onto the coordinates at 3:47 a.m., displaying a route that led off Clinton Road onto a dirt access path I'd never noticed before. My headlights illuminated a narrow trail cutting through dense pine forest, barely wide enough for my trailer to navigate without scraping against the trees on both sides. A wooden sign hung from a rusted post at the trail entrance. "Pinelands Preservation Authority. Authorized personnel only." Below it, someone had mailed a smaller sign with hand-painted letters. "Receiving Station 7. Night deliveries accepted." The dirt road wound deeper into forest that seemed older than the surrounding pine barrens, where massive oak and cedar trees formed a canopy so thick my headlights barely penetrated 20 feet ahead. My truck's engine seemed muffled here, the diesel rumble absorbed by vegetation that grew in patterns too organized to be natural. The radio crackled. "Unit 47, you are approaching the delivery zone. Maintain speed below 15 miles per hour. Do not exit vehicle until receiving team confirms arrival." "Copy that, base," I replied, though I was beginning to wonder who exactly constituted the base that kept transmitting instructions. The cargo had started moving again, but differently this time. Instead of knocking or scratching, I could hear what sounded like conversation. Multiple voices speaking in hushed tones, planning something I couldn't quite make out through the trailer walls. Occasionally, one of them would call my name, asking questions about my route, my schedule, my family back in Patterson. "Vincent, does Angela know what you really haul at night?" "Vincent, what will Emma think when she finds out about the special freight?" "Vincent, Dom never told you about the insurance policy, did he?" I cranked up the radio volume to drown out their voices, but the CB only picked up static now, occasionally punctuated by transmissions in languages that hurt my head to listen to. The dashboard clock showed 4:23 a.m., but my watch had stopped working entirely, its hands frozen at 2:17. A clearing opened ahead, illuminated by work lights mounted on tall poles that cast harsh white circles on packed earth. The receiving station looked like a construction site crossed with a medical facility. Prefab buildings connected by covered walkways, loading docks equipped with hydraulic lifts, and vehicles I didn't recognize parked in neat rows. 3 people in reflective safety vests emerged from the largest building, walking toward my truck with purposeful strides. Their movements seemed coordinated, like they'd done this hundreds of times before, but something about their gait felt wrong. Too fluid, too synchronized, like they were following choreography instead of responding naturally to terrain. I brought the Peterbilt to a stop at the first loading dock, setting the air brakes with a hiss of released pressure. The receiving team approached my driver's side window. 2 men and a woman, all wearing identical orange vests and hard hats that cast shadows across their faces. "Evening, Vincent," the woman said, her voice carrying a slight accent I couldn't place. "Beautiful night for a delivery. How was your trip through the forest?" I hadn't told them my name. It wasn't painted on the truck, wasn't listed on any of the shipping documentation visible from outside the cab. But she knew who I was, just like the cargo in the trailer had known details about my personal life. "Copy that, base," I replied, sticking to Protocol 3. She laughed, a sound like wind chimes made from bone. "You can talk normally here, Vincent. The protocols only apply during transport. We're the destination. You've completed your run." One of the men walked around to the back of the trailer, producing a key ring from his vest pocket. But these weren't ordinary keys. They looked organic, carved from what might have been antler or tooth, each one shaped to fit locks that didn't operate on mechanical principles. "Let's see what you've brought us tonight," he said, inserting one of the organic keys into a mechanism I hadn't noticed before. The trailer doors swung open without any resistance, revealing an interior that had changed again during the drive through the forest. The wooden crates were gone. In their place, dozens of people stood in perfect rows, their hands clasped behind their backs, like soldiers at attention. But these weren't the pale, malformed things I'd seen at the rest area. They looked human now. Men and women of various ages, dressed in clothing from different decades, all staring straight ahead with expressions of patient waiting. "Excellent condition," the woman observed, making notes on a clipboard that appeared to be made from pressed leaves. "Transport temperature maintained properly. No damage during handling. This batch should integrate smoothly into the community." "Community?" I asked, forgetting the protocol restrictions. "The Pine Barrens have always been home to those who don't quite fit in the regular world," she explained. "People who've wandered off marked trails, drivers who've taken wrong turns, hikers who've followed sounds in the forest that led them away from their intended paths. We provide them with new purposes, new identities, new ways to contribute to something larger than their individual concerns." The cargo, the people, began filing out of the trailer in orderly fashion, moving with that same fluid coordination I'd noticed in the receiving team. As they passed my open window, some of them looked up at me with eyes that held fragments of recognition. A middle-aged man in a flannel shirt that looked like it belonged in the 1980s paused beside my truck. "Thank you for the ride, Vincent. See you next time." Next time? I was planning to drive straight back to Dom's warehouse, collect my payment, and find a different line of work. But the man's words carried weight, like a promise or a prediction that hadn't been shared with me yet. "Where are they going?" I asked the woman with the clipboard. "Work assignments throughout the region. Some will staff rest areas along Clinton Road, helping other travelers who need guidance. Others will join maintenance crews that keep the special routes clear and functional. A few might even become drivers themselves, once they understand the transportation system fully." And the second man approached from the rear of the trailer, carrying what looked like shipping receipts. All cargo accounted for and transferred successfully. Payment authorization confirmed. Unit 47 is cleared for return journey. He handed me an envelope through the window. Not a check or cash, but something that felt warm to the touch, like living tissue wrapped in paper. Your compensation, plus bonus for maintaining protocol compliance throughout the delivery run. I opened the envelope. Inside was my usual payment, but also something extra. A photograph of Emma's college dormitory, taken from an angle that suggested the photographer had been standing in her room. On the back, someone had written, "Education expenses can be expensive. Additional runs available for qualified drivers." My hand started shaking. "How did you get this picture?" "The transportation network extends throughout New Jersey and beyond," the woman explained calmly. "We have receiving stations at many locations, college campuses, medical facilities, residential neighborhoods. Sometimes we need reliable drivers to handle special deliveries to these various sites." The threat was subtle, but clear. Continue working for the network, or Emma might find herself classified as cargo requiring transportation to a Pine Barrens receiving station. "Next run is scheduled for Thursday night," she continued. "Same pickup location, different destination. The cargo will be more interactive this time. You'll need to follow additional protocols." She handed me a new laminated card, this one containing 9 rules instead of 7. I didn't read them immediately. My eyes were still fixed on the photograph of Emma's dorm room. But I could see they were more complex, involving specific tones, temperatures, and procedures for handling cargo that could communicate during transport. "Any questions about your ongoing employment with our organization?" the woman asked. I looked at the photograph again, then at the empty trailer, then at the receiving team, whose faces seemed to shift subtly in the work-light glare. Questions? I had hundreds of them, but only one answer that mattered. "Copy that base," I said. She smiled, revealing teeth that were too white and too sharp. "Excellent. Drive safely, Vincent. The forest can be treacherous for drivers who don't follow established routes." I pulled away from the loading dock, leaving the receiving station and its organized operation behind. The dirt road led back to Quinton Road, then to Route 23, then to familiar highways that connected to the regular world, where people worried about normal problems like rent and car payments, and whether their kids were studying hard enough in college. But the photograph was still in my pocket, warm against my chest, like a beating heart. And the new protocol card was clipped to my sun visor, waiting for Thursday night when I'd return to Dom's warehouse for another load of cargo that had once been people who'd made wrong choices in the Pine Barrens. The radio crackled one last time. "Unit 47, welcome to the transportation network. Your integration is proceeding smoothly." I didn't respond. Protocol 3 only applied during active runs, but somehow I knew that staying quiet was still the safest option. The network had ways of monitoring its drivers, ensuring compliance with procedures that kept the special freight moving between destinations that existed in the spaces regular maps couldn't show. By the time I reached Patterson, dawn was breaking over the Passaic River, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reminded me of the reflectors marking authorized rest areas. Normal colors, normal light, normal morning traffic, heading to normal jobs. But normal was a luxury I'd traded away for Emma's college tuition and Angela's medical bills. Now I was part of something that moved through New Jersey's back roads after midnight, transporting cargo that whispered my name and knew secrets I'd never shared with anyone. Thursday was 3 days away. Plenty of time to memorize the new protocols and prepare for cargo that would be more interactive. I wondered what Emma was studying in that dorm room, and whether she'd be surprised to learn that her father's night job involved deliveries to places that didn't exist on any legitimate map. Tuesday morning brought rain to Patterson, drumming against the windows of my studio apartment above Sal's Deli with a persistence that matched my growing paranoia. I'd called in sick to my regular dispatcher job, claiming food poisoning. But the truth was, I couldn't concentrate on normal freight manifests when the photograph of Emma's dorm room sat on my kitchen table like a threat made tangible. I tried calling her cell phone 6 times before noon. Each call went straight to voicemail, her cheerful voice asking me to leave a message, while my imagination conjured scenarios where she'd already been collected by the transportation network's campus representatives. By 2 p.m., I was parked outside Rutgers University, sitting in my personal Honda CR-V in the visitor lot near her dormitory. Students walked past in groups, backpacks slung over shoulders, talking about exams and weekend plans, and professors who assigned too much reading. Normal college concerns, normal lives that didn't involve supernatural shipping operations or cargo that used to be human. Emma emerged from Voorhees Hall at 3:17, walking with 2 friends toward the student center. She looked healthy, alert, completely unaware that someone had been inside her room taking photographs. Relief flooded through me like warm water, followed immediately by the realization that my presence here put her in more danger than my absence ever could. I drove back to Patterson without making contact, but I'd seen enough to know the network wasn't bluffing about their surveillance capabilities. They had access to places and people that should have been beyond their reach, which meant running wasn't an option, not for me, and not for my family. Wednesday evening, I visited Dom's warehouse during regular business hours, hoping to find answers that might help me understand what I'd become part of. The loading dock was busy with legitimate freight operations, crews loading furniture onto day-shift trucks, dispatchers coordinating deliveries to Garden State Plaza and other shopping centers throughout North Jersey. Dom was in his office trailer, reviewing paperwork that looked reassuringly normal. Bills of lading from actual manufacturers, shipping schedules that corresponded to real businesses. But when he saw me through the glass door, his expression shifted from concentration to something resembling pity. "Vince, you're not supposed to be here during daylight operations," he said, opening the door before I could knock. "Night drivers and day drivers don't mix. Different insurance policies." "I need to know what I've gotten myself into, Dom. That cargo on Monday night, those weren't furniture and appliances." He gestured for me to sit in a folding chair beside his desk, then closed the door and pulled the Venetian blinds shut. "What you haul after midnight isn't my concern once it leaves this dock. I provide vehicles, routes, and payment schedules. Everything else is between you and the receiving stations. But you know what's really being transported." Dom opened a desk drawer and pulled out a bottle of Jameson, pouring 2 shots into paper cups. My nephew Tony started asking similar questions 3 months ago. Wanted to understand the special freight system, thought he could optimize the loading procedures. He handed me one of the cups. The whiskey burned, but it was the first normal sensation I'd experienced in days. "Where's Tony now?" I asked. "Still working here, still loading trucks, still following procedures." Dom finished his drink and poured another, but he doesn't ask questions anymore. Found his purpose within the organization, you might say. Through the office window, I could see Tony directing a loading crew near Bay 3. But something about his movements seemed different. Too fluid, too coordinated, like the receiving team at the Pine Barren station. His nephew had been integrated into the system, transformed from curious employee into compliant component. "How long have you been running this operation?" I asked. "Started in 1987 when I inherited the warehouse from my father. Back then, it was just regular freight, furniture, electronics, auto parts. But the transportation network approached me with an offer I couldn't refuse. Better profit margins, guaranteed contracts, protection for my family. Dom opened another desk drawer, revealing photographs similar to the one I'd received. His grandchildren at elementary school, his wife shopping at Willowbrook Mall, his brother leaving work at a Clifton machine shop. The network has been moving special cargo through New Jersey for decades, he continued. Maybe longer. They need legitimate businesses as fronts, reliable drivers who can follow protocols without asking too many questions. In exchange, they provide financial security and ensure our loved ones remain safe. Safe from what? From becoming cargo themselves. Dom refilled both cups. The Pine Barrens collect people who wander off marked paths, but the transportation network ensures that collection happens in organized fashion. Better to have controlled operations than random disappearances that might attract state police attention. I thought about the organized rows of people in my trailer, standing at attention like soldiers waiting for deployment. What happens to them after delivery? They find new purposes, work assignments that contribute to regional operations. Some staff the rest areas that help other travelers. Others maintain equipment or handle logistics. A few become drivers once they understand the system well enough. The whiskey was making me brave or stupid. What if I refused to make the Thursday run? Dom looked genuinely sorry for me. Then Friday morning, Emma doesn't wake up in her dorm room. She wakes up in a wooden crate, confused and scared, wondering why her father didn't follow simple protocols that would have kept her safe. He opened a third drawer, revealing a thick folder marked with my name. Inside were photographs, documents, surveillance reports spanning weeks of my personal life. They knew about my discharge from Fort Dix, my divorce proceedings, my child support payments, my credit card debt. The network had been evaluating me long before Dom offered the Clinton Road contract. You were selected specifically for this role, Vince. Single male, military background, financial pressures that make employment termination impossible. You fit the psychological profile for long-term transportation network integration. Integration? Most drivers start with standard cargo runs. Furniture, appliances, normal freight that helps you develop trust in the protocols. Then special runs with interactive cargo that tests your compliance under stress. Eventually, you become a network coordinator, helping recruit new drivers and managing multiple routes. He showed me organizational charts that map the transportation network across New Jersey and beyond. Dozens of drivers, hundreds of receiving stations, thousands of people who'd been integrated into roles that supported operations spanning multiple states. The Thursday run is your advancement evaluation, Don explained. Interactive cargo requires more complex protocols, but successful completion moves you into management track. Better pay, better benefits, better protection for family members. The folder contained a new contract. Not for driving, but for regional coordination. The salary was 3 times what I made from regular freight runs, with health insurance that would cover Angela's surgery and educational benefits that would fund Emma's entire college experience. All I had to do was follow 9 protocols instead of 7, handle cargo that could communicate during transport, and help identify potential new drivers among the region's trucking community. What kind of communication? I asked. Questions about route optimization, delivery schedules, family members who might be suitable for various network positions. Nothing threatening, just conversation to help them adjust to their new roles within the organization. Dom closed the folder and slid it across the desk. Take this home. Review the advancement contract. Tomorrow night, you'll understand why the transportation network has operated successfully for so many years. I left the warehouse with more questions than answers, but also with the growing realization that escape wasn't possible. The network had invested too much time and resources in my recruitment to allow simple resignation. And the alternative, Emma as cargo, wasn't something I could risk, no matter what moral compromises were required. Thursday's run would determine whether I became a coordinator or remained a driver. Either way, I was part of the system now, moving special freight through New Jersey's back roads to destinations that existed in spaces regular maps couldn't document. The rain had stopped by the time I reached Patterson, but the photograph of Emma's dorm room was still on my kitchen table, warm to the touch like living tissue. 12 hours until the next pickup. 12 hours to memorize 9 protocols and prepare for cargo that would ask questions I wasn't sure I wanted to answer. But Angela needed surgery. Emma needed tuition money. And I needed to believe that following the rules would keep them safe from the transportation network that had been operating in the shadows long before I ever heard of Clinton Road. Thursday night arrived with fog thick enough to muffle sound and obscure everything beyond my headlight reach. I'd spent the afternoon memorizing the 9 protocols, practicing responses to potential questions from interactive cargo, and trying not to think about what interactive actually meant in the context of shipping people who'd been transformed by the Pine Barrens transportation network. The warehouse looked different when I arrived at 11:30 p.m. Bay 2 was active as usual, but Bays 1 and 3 had their doors rolled up, revealing loading operations I'd never witnessed before. Workers in reflective vests moved between the bays with practiced efficiency, but their coordination reminded me too much of the receiving team at the Forest Station. Fluid, synchronized, slightly wrong. Tony met me at the driver's side door, clipboard in hand, but when he looked up at me, his eyes held no recognition. Not forgetfulness, complete absence of memory, like his personality had been replaced with something designed solely for warehouse operations. Evening Vincent. Advanced cargo tonight. Personal transport requiring specialized handling. His voice carried the same flat tone I'd heard from the cargo in Monday's trailer. Destination coordinates will be provided during transport. The bill of lading showed a different category of freight. Corporate relocation services, with pickup addresses in Morristown, Summit, and Chatham. Upscale communities where people had money, education, connections that would be missed if they simply vanished. But the transportation network had developed more sophisticated methods than random disappearance. "What kind of personal transport?" I asked. Tony's expression didn't change. Executive reassignment. Participants volunteered for career advancement opportunities in specialized industries. Your role is transportation coordination and integration consultation. Integration consultation. The euphemisms were getting more elaborate, but the meaning was clear. My job was to help newly transformed cargo adjust to their circumstances during the drive to whatever receiving station would process them for their new roles within the network. The loading crew brought out 6 people in expensive business attire, walking under their own power, but with that same synchronized gait I'd noticed in others who'd been processed by the system. 3 men, 3 women, all appearing to be in their 40s or 50s, all carrying briefcases and looking like they were heading to important meetings rather than supernatural relocation. But their eyes told a different story. Awareness flickered behind professional facades, confusion, fear, and growing comprehension of their situation. They were conscious, alert, and beginning to understand what had happened to them during whatever recruitment process the network had used. "Vincent Torino?" one of the women asked as they approached my truck. She was dressed in a charcoal business suit that probably cost more than I made in a month, her silver hair arranged in a style that suggested corporate boardrooms and quarterly earnings reports. "That's right," I replied, I'm certain about protocol for addressing interactive cargo directly. I'm Patricia Kellerman, Regional Vice President for Meridian Financial Services. There seems to be some confusion about my transportation arrangements. Her voice carried authority, the tone of someone accustomed to having problems solved immediately. I was expecting a sedan to my hotel, not a freight truck. The man beside her nodded agreement. Robert Chen, senior partner at Chen and Associates Legal. This is highly irregular. I need to contact my office immediately. A third person, younger than the others but still carrying himself with executive confidence, stepped forward. Michael Santos, Director of Operations for Summit Medical Group. I think there's been some kind of mistake with our pickup location. They remembered their identities, their jobs, their normal lives. This wasn't like Monday's cargo, which had been fully transformed into compliant shipping units. These people retain their personalities while being processed for integration into the network's operations. Tony handed me a laminated card with additional instructions I hadn't seen before. Not new protocols, but clarifications for handling cargo that could communicate. Integration. Consultation guidelines. Answer questions about transport duration and destination. Explain career advancement opportunities in specialized industries. Discourage contact attempts with previous employers or family. Provide reassurance about compensation and benefits packages. Report any resistance or non-compliance to base station. Your consultation begins once transport is underway, Tony explained. Base will provide destination coordinates after initial integration assessment. The 6 executives climbed into the trailer, taking seats on benches that had been installed along both walls. The cargo area had been converted into something resembling a corporate shuttle, complete with reading lights and climate control. But I could see restraint systems built into the bench designs, subtle modifications that would prevent departure if passengers became uncooperative. I started the engine and pulled away from the warehouse, following Clinton Road into forest that seemed thicker than usual. The fog muffled engine noise and made my headlight reach even shorter, creating an environment where conversation would be the primary way to pass time during transport. "Vincent," Patricia called through the communication window between cab and trailer. "How long is this drive supposed to take?" I consulted the integration guidelines. "About 3 hours to your destination. You'll find the journey quite comfortable." 3 hours to where? Robert demanded. "I have client meetings scheduled for tomorrow morning." "Your new position will provide schedule flexibility that better accommodates your expertise," I replied, reading from the approved responses. "The organization values experienced professionals and offers advancement opportunities that exceed traditional corporate limitations." Michael Santos laughed, but the sound held no humor. "Organization? What organization?" I was attending a recruitment seminar for medical device sales at the Marriott in Chatham. Next thing I remember, I'm being loaded into a truck like freight. The radio crackled. "Unit 47, provide initial assessment of cargo integration status." "Copy that, base. Cargo is alert and responsive. Beginning consultation phase." "Consultation?" Patricia's voice sharpened. "Vincent, what exactly is happening here? Where are you taking us?" I had a choice. Follow the guidelines and help ease their transition into the network, or tell them the truth about what they'd become. The photograph of Emma's dorm room was still in my wallet, warm against my chest like a beating heart, reminding me what happened to families of drivers who didn't maintain compliance. "You've been selected for positions within a specialized transportation and logistics network," I explained, sticking to the approved language. "Your professional experience makes you valuable candidates for management roles in operations that extend throughout the Northeast region." "Selected by whom?" Robert pressed. I didn't apply for any transportation positions. The radio provided guidance. Unit 47. Explain recruitment process as voluntary career transition program. The recruitment seminar you attended was sponsored by the network's Human Resources Division. I continued. Your participation indicates acceptance of employment terms, including relocation to operational facilities that better utilize your skill sets. 3 hours of this. 3 hours of helping successful professionals understand that their previous lives had ended and new roles within the supernatural shipping network awaited them. 3 hours of being complicit in the transformation process that turned people into components of an organization I barely understood myself. My family will be looking for me, Michael said. My wife expects me home tonight. My kids have soccer games this weekend. The guidelines suggested appropriate responses for family concerns. Network employment includes comprehensive benefits that provide for family members through various support programs. Your loved ones will receive information about your career advancement and new location once initial integration is complete. Integration? Patricia caught the euphemism immediately. Vincent, that's the third time you've used that word. What does it mean in practical terms? Before I could formulate an approved response, the radio crackled with new instructions. Unit 47. Destination coordinates are 41.1847, negative 74.3291. Estimated arrival time is 3:17 a.m. Prepare cargo for advanced integration procedures. I plugged the coordinates into my GPS, though I already knew it wouldn't display normal routing information. The network's destinations existed in spaces between official maps, accessible only through roads that appeared when specific conditions were met. Advanced integration procedures. Robert had heard the radio transmission. Vincent, I'm a lawyer. That language suggests medical or psychological intervention. What kind of organization are you working for? The fog was getting thicker, pressing against my windshield like cotton soaked in formaldehyde. My headlights revealed forests that looked older than the surrounding pine barrens, where massive trees formed corridors that seemed designed for vehicles rather than growing naturally. The network has operated successfully for decades, I replied, borrowing from Dom's explanation. Integration procedures ensure that new personnel can contribute effectively to regional operations while maintaining the confidentiality necessary for specialized logistics work. Confidentiality about what? Patricia demanded. The coordinates were leading deeper into forest than Monday night's destination, toward coordinates that placed us well beyond any legitimate transportation infrastructure. But somehow the road continued, winding between trees that looked like they'd been planted in geometric patterns designed to channel vehicles toward specific destinations. Vincent, Michael called, his voice taking on desperate edge. My daughter has type 1 diabetes. She needs her insulin shots every 12 hours. If I don't get home to help her manage her blood sugar levels, she could go into diabetic coma. The photograph in my wallet grew warmer. Emma's dorm room, captured from an angle that suggested the photographer had been standing right beside her bed. The network's surveillance capabilities extended to college campuses, medical facilities, suburban neighborhoods where families lived normal lives that could be disrupted with a single phone call. Network benefits include comprehensive medical coverage for all family members, I said, though the words felt like lead in my mouth. Specialized healthcare teams will ensure your daughter receives appropriate treatment while you complete your integration period. Integration period? Robert caught every euphemism. How long does this process take? The radio provided the answer. Unit 47, inform cargo that integration duration varies based on individual adaptation rates. Most personnel achieve operational status within 30 to 60 days. 60 days. 2 months for successful professionals, to be transformed into components of a supernatural shipping network. 2 months for their families to receive carefully worded explanations about career opportunities that required extended training periods in remote locations. "My wife will call the police," Patricia said. "When I don't return from the business seminar, she'll file a missing person report." "Network personnel handle all communication with previous associates," I replied. "Your family will receive regular updates about your training program and projected completion timeline." But I was beginning to understand the real scope of the operation. The network didn't just transport people, it managed their entire disappearance process, providing explanations that prevented law enforcement involvement, while new recruits underwent whatever procedures transformed them into compliant network components. The coordinates were close now, according to my compass. Another receiving station waited in forest that existed in spaces official maps couldn't document, where successful executives would begin transformation into roles that supported an organization older and more extensive than I'd imagined. Behind me, 6 people continued asking questions I couldn't answer honestly, seeking reassurance I couldn't provide, hoping for explanations that wouldn't terrify them. And I kept following the guidelines, helping them adjust to circumstances that would fundamentally alter everything they thought they knew about reality. The radio crackled one final time. "Unit 47, you are approaching destination. Cargo consultation performance has been exemplary. Advancement approval confirmed." Advancement approval. I'd passed the evaluation, earned promotion to network coordinator status. Better pay, better benefits, better protection for Emma and Angela. All it cost was my complicity in transforming 6 successful professionals into components of a supernatural shipping operation that moved through New Jersey's back roads like a cancer metastasizing through the legitimate transportation industry. The receiving station at coordinates 41.1847, -74.3291, looked more like a corporate retreat than the industrial facility I'd encountered Monday night. Modern buildings constructed from glass and steel rose from a cleared area surrounded by pine forest, their architectural design suggesting high-end business conferences rather than supernatural cargo processing. Landscaped walkways connected multiple structures, each one illuminated by soft lighting that created an atmosphere of professional luxury. Signs marked different facilities: Executive Integration Center, Career Transition Services, and Family Communication Hub. The network had invested considerable resources in making this location feel welcoming rather than threatening. A reception team approached my truck as I backed up to the primary loading dock. 3 people in business attire rather than reflective safety vests, carrying tablet computers instead of clipboards. They looked like corporate recruiters or human resources specialists, which I was beginning to understand might not be far from the truth. "Vincent, congratulations on your advancement approval," the lead representative said as I stepped down from the cab. She was a woman in her 30s, wearing a navy blue suit that could have come from any Fortune 500 boardroom. "I'm Jennifer Walsh, Regional Coordinator for Executive Integration Services. We're excited to begin working with you in your new capacity." Regional Coordinator. The title that awaited me if I continued following protocols and helping transform people into network components. Better pay, better benefits, better protection for my family, and deeper complicity in an operation that collected successful professionals, like specimens, for some larger organizational purpose. "What exactly does regional coordination involve?" I asked. "You'll manage multiple transportation routes throughout New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania," Jennifer explained. "Recruit and train new drivers, coordinate with various receiving stations, and help develop integration strategies for different types of cargo. Much more variety than single route operations." The trailer doors opened to reveal my 6 passengers, who had spent the 3-hour drive gradually accepting their circumstances through a combination of corporate euphemisms and growing comprehension that resistance was futile. They emerged with the resigned expressions of people who'd concluded that cooperation offered their best chance of survival. Patricia Kellerman approached Jennifer with the practiced confidence of someone accustomed to negotiating business deals. "Ms. Walsh, I assume you're the person who can provide actual information about this organization and what you want from us." "Absolutely, Patricia. Welcome to the Northeast Regional Integration Center. We're here to help you transition into roles that better utilize your executive experience." Jennifer's tone matched Patricia's professional demeanor perfectly. "Why don't we begin with a facility tour so you can see the opportunities available?" The other executives followed as Jennifer led them toward the main building, their conversation growing distant as they walked along landscaped pathways that could have belonged to any corporate campus. From outside, the integration process looked remarkably civilized. No restraints, no coercion, just business professionals discussing career opportunities in a well-appointed facility. But I'd seen Monday night's cargo, and I understood what lay beneath the corporate polish. "Vincent, you'll want to observe the integration procedures," said another member of the reception team, a man in his 40s, whose name tag identified him as Dr. Richard Hausman, Integration Specialist. "Understanding the complete process will help you provide better consultation during future transports." We followed the group into a reception area that looked like an upscale hotel lobby, complete with comfortable seating areas, coffee service, and large windows overlooking forest that stretched beyond the horizon. The executives were invited to sit while Jennifer began what sounded like a standard orientation presentation. "The network operates specialized logistics services throughout the Northeast region," she explained. "Our clients require discretion, efficiency, and personnel who understand the unique challenges of moving sensitive materials through traditional transportation infrastructure." Michael Santos raised his hand like he was attending a legitimate business seminar. "What kind of sensitive materials?" "Items that require specialized handling protocols," Jennifer replied smoothly. "Pharmaceutical compounds that aren't approved for standard shipping, medical devices that need temperature-controlled transport, research materials that government agencies prefer to move through private channels." The explanation sounded plausible enough that I almost believed it myself. The network provided logistics services for clients who operated outside normal regulatory frameworks, using a combination of legitimate trucking operations and supernatural transportation methods to move cargo that couldn't be shipped through conventional channels. Dr. Hausman guided me to an observation area overlooking the main conference room, where Jennifer continued her presentation with slides showing transportation routes, facility locations, and organizational charts that mapped network operations across multiple states. "The integration process begins with comprehensive evaluation of each candidate's professional background," Dr. Hausman explained quietly. "We identify skill sets that translate effectively to network operations, then provide training programs that help personnel adapt to specialized requirements." "What kind of specialized requirements?" I asked. "Working with cargo that exhibits unusual characteristics, maintaining protocol compliance under stressful conditions, communicating with clients who have specific preferences about how their materials are handled." He pointed toward the conference room, where Patricia was asking detailed questions about compensation packages. Most executives adapt quickly once they understand the benefits. Jennifer was displaying salary information that showed network positions paying significantly more than traditional corporate roles. Healthcare coverage that extended to family members. Educational benefits for children. Retirement plans that provided security beyond anything available in the regular economy. "The network takes care of its personnel," Dr. Hausman continued. "But in exchange, we require absolute loyalty and complete discretion about operational details. Robert Chen had pulled out his cell phone, trying to call his law firm. But the device showed no signal bars, and Jennifer quickly explained that the facility's location provided natural electromagnetic isolation that prevented unauthorized communications. During the initial integration period, all external contact is managed through our family communication specialists, she said. They'll ensure your loved ones receive appropriate updates about your training program and projected completion timeline. Integration period, training program, family communication specialists. The network had developed an entire vocabulary of euphemisms that made supernatural human trafficking sound like corporate career advancement. How long before I can contact my family directly? Patricia asked. Most personnel achieve independent communication privileges within 60 to 90 days, Jennifer replied. Once you've completed basic training and demonstrated understanding of confidentiality protocols. 3 months. Long enough for families to accept explanations about extended business travel or specialized career opportunities. Long enough for missing person investigations to lose momentum when regular updates suggested the absent individual was pursuing legitimate employment in a remote location. Dr. Hausman showed me additional observation areas where I could watch different stages of the integration process. Medical evaluations that assessed psychological adaptability, skills testing that identified optimal role assignments, and orientation sessions that gradually introduced personnel to the network's actual operations. Advanced coordinators like yourself participate in all phases, he explained. Understanding the complete process helps you identify suitable candidates during your recruitment activities. Recruitment activities. My new role wouldn't just involve transporting people who'd been collected by the network. I'd be responsible for identifying potential candidates and helping facilitate their recruitment through various methods. What kind of methods? I asked. Business seminars that attract executives seeking career advancement, professional conferences where networking opportunities lead to interesting conversations, industry events where ambitious individuals might be receptive to offers from organizations with specialized requirements. The method they'd use to collect tonight's cargo. Professional recruiting that identified successful people with valuable skills, then channeled them into situations where the network could evaluate their suitability for integration into specialized roles. Through the observation window, I watched Jennifer conclude her presentation with a slide showing facility amenities, comfortable living quarters, recreational activities, communication privileges that would be gradually restored as integration progressed. The executives were nodding, asking practical questions about logistics and timeline, beginning to accept their circumstances with the pragmatic resignation of people who'd concluded that cooperation offered their best survival strategy. They're adapting well, Dr. Hausman observed. Professional executives often integrate more smoothly than other candidate categories. They understand organizational structures and respond positively to clear advancement pathways. Patricia was shaking hands with Jennifer, apparently agreeing to participate in whatever orientation program the network had designed for new personnel. The other executives followed her lead, making decisions that looked voluntary, but reflected their growing comprehension that refusal wasn't actually an option. Vincent, your consultation performance during transport was exceptional, Dr. Hausman continued. The cargo arrived in optimal condition for integration procedures. We'd like you to observe the complete process so you understand how your transportation services connect to larger operational objectives. I spent the next 2 hours watching successful business professionals undergo evaluation procedures that gradually revealed the network's actual nature. Medical examinations that tested their psychological flexibility, skills assessments that identified how their expertise could support supernatural logistics operations, orientation sessions that introduced them to concepts like specialized cargo handling and non-standard transportation protocols. By dawn, All 6 executives had been assigned to integration programs that would transform them into network personnel within 60 to 90 days. They'd been given comfortable quarters, professional attire appropriate for their new roles, and schedules that included training sessions designed to help them adapt to responsibilities they couldn't yet fully comprehend. Your advancement package includes coordination responsibilities for the entire central New Jersey region, Dr. Hausman explained as we walked back toward my truck. 6 drivers reporting to you, 12 receiving stations under your oversight, recruitment quotas that should be easily manageable given your military background and transportation industry experience. He handed me a thick folder containing organizational charts, route schedules, and recruitment guidelines for identifying candidates suitable for network integration. My salary would triple, with benefits that covered Angela's medical expenses and Emma's complete college education. All I had to do was help collect more people like Patricia, Robert, and Michael, successful professionals who'd built careers and families they cared about, then found themselves transported to facilities where those previous lives became memories they'd gradually learned to accept as part of their past rather than their present. The folder also contained a new address, a house in Morristown, where network coordinators lived while managing their assigned territories. Better neighborhood, better schools for coordinators' children, better protection from the kinds of random disappearances that affected people who weren't connected to the organization. "Welcome to management, Vincent," Dr. Hausman said as I climbed back into my truck. "Your first coordination meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday. We'll introduce you to your team and begin training on advanced recruitment techniques." The drive back to Patterson took me through forest that looked normal in morning sunlight, but I knew I'd crossed a line during the night that couldn't be uncrossed. I was no longer just a driver following protocols to protect my family. I was part of the network's management structure, responsible for expanding operations and identifying new candidates for integration into an organization that transformed people into components of something larger than I could fully understand. 3 weeks into my coordinator role, I stood in the Marriott Ballroom in Chatham, wearing a navy blue suit that cost more than my monthly rent in Patterson, watching 200 business professionals network over cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. The placard beside the registration table read, "Northeast Regional Supply Chain Innovation Conference," sponsored by organizations that existed on paper but operated from addresses that led to empty office buildings. My job was to identify candidates suitable for network integration, using psychological profiles developed by Dr. Hausman's team to evaluate potential recruits during seemingly casual conversations. The folder in my hotel room contained dossiers on 12 attendees who met preliminary screening criteria: financially stressed executives, recently divorced professionals seeking career changes, ambitious individuals willing to relocate for advancement opportunities. Vincent Torino, Regional Transportation Coordinator. I introduced myself to a woman in her early 40s who'd been standing alone near the bar, studying conference materials, with the focused attention of someone genuinely interested in supply chain optimization. Lisa Nakamura, Operations Director for Bergen County Medical Supply, she replied, shaking my hand with the firm grip of someone accustomed to business dealings. "I'm particularly interested in your session on specialized logistics solutions." According to her dossier, Lisa was divorced, struggling with custody payments for 2 teenage children, and facing potential layoffs due to hospital consolidation in northern New Jersey. Her psychological profile suggested high adaptability, strong problem-solving skills, and the kind of financial desperation that made people receptive to offers from organizations with generous compensation packages. "Our specialized services focus on materials that require discrete handling protocols," I explained, using language the network had developed for recruitment conversations. "Pharmaceutical compounds, medical devices, research materials that government agencies prefer to move through private channels." Lisa nodded with genuine interest. We've been having issues with temperature-sensitive shipments. Our current logistics partners can't guarantee proper handling of experimental medications, and we're losing contracts because of delivery failures. That's exactly the kind of challenge our network specializes in solving, I continued, following the recruitment script I'd memorized during coordinator training. We work with clients who need absolute reliability for materials that can't be shipped through conventional channels. The conversation continued for 20 minutes, during which I learned about Lisa's operational experience, her willingness to travel for career advancement, and her frustration with traditional logistics companies that couldn't meet specialized requirements. By the time we exchanged business cards, I'd confirmed she met all criteria for advanced integration services. "There might be opportunities for someone with your background," I said, handing her a card that listed my contact information but provided no details about the network's actual operations. "Our organization is expanding throughout the Northeast, and we're always looking for experienced operations directors." Lisa slipped the card into her purse, with the careful attention of someone who'd learned to evaluate every potential career opportunity. "I'd be very interested in learning more about your organization. I'll have someone from our Human Resources division contact you next week," I promised, though the HR division consisted of people like Jennifer Walsh, who specialized in conducting interviews that gradually revealed whether candidates were suitable for transformation into network personnel. Over the next 3 hours, I had similar conversations with 8 other attendees, identifying those who exhibited the combination of professional competence and personal vulnerability that made integration procedures most successful. Each conversation felt like a normal business networking opportunity, but I was actually evaluating potential cargo for future Clinton road runs. The conference concluded with a presentation by Dr. Hausman, who appeared under the identity Dr. Richard Hall, Supply Chain Efficiency Consultant. His slideshow covered transportation optimization techniques that sounded legitimate but contained subtle references to handling procedures for materials that exhibited unusual characteristics during shipping. Traditional logistics frameworks aren't designed for specialized cargo that requires adaptive protocols, he explained to an audience that included my 9 recruitment targets. Our network has developed innovative solutions for clients whose materials need more flexible handling approaches. After the presentation, several attendees approached Dr. Hausman with questions about consulting services for their organizations. He collected business cards and promised follow-up conversations, but I knew those discussions would lead to recruitment interviews designed to evaluate candidates for integration into network operations. "Excellent initial assessment work," Dr. Hausman told me as we reviewed my recruitment notes in his hotel suite. "Your military background provides credibility that helps candidates trust your organizational representation." He showed me psychological evaluations based on my conversation reports, identifying Lisa Nakamura and 3 other attendees as optimal candidates for immediate recruitment. The others would be monitored for several months, with follow-up contacts designed to assess their ongoing suitability for network integration. "Lisa appears particularly promising," he continued. "Single mother, financial pressures, professional expertise that translates well to specialized logistics operations. We'll schedule her initial interview for next Thursday." Initial interview. The process that would begin Lisa's transformation from successful operations director to network cargo, following the same path Patricia Kellerman and her colleagues had taken 3 weeks earlier at the Northeast Regional Integration Center. "What happened to the executives from my advancement evaluation run?" I asked. Dr. Hausman consulted his tablet computer, scrolling through files that contained updates on personnel integration progress. "Patricia completed basic training last week and has been assigned to recruitment coordination for the Philadelphia region. Robert is working with our legal compliance division, helping develop contract language for specialized transportation services. Michael joined our medical assessment team, evaluating candidates for various integration programs. They'd been transformed into network personnel, using their professional skills to support operations that collected more people like themselves. The integration process didn't destroy their expertise. It redirected their talents toward organizational objectives they would have found morally reprehensible in their previous lives. The complete cycle typically requires 4 to 6 months, Dr. Hausman explained. Initial integration, skills assessment, role assignment, and operational deployment. Most personnel adapt successfully, though adaptation rates vary based on individual psychological characteristics. What happens to those who don't adapt successfully? Dr. Hausman closed his tablet without answering directly. The network invests considerable resources in personnel development. We have strong incentives to ensure successful integration outcomes. But I'd seen Monday night's cargo, the pale things in wooden crates who whispered about being trapped between their former humanity and whatever the network had transformed them into. Not everyone became coordinator material. Some became cargo, but never reached destinations suitable for professional employment. 2 days later, I participated in my first recruitment interview, observing as Jennifer Walsh conducted what appeared to be a standard job interview with Lisa Nakamura in a conference room at a Newark hotel. The questions covered Lisa's operational experience, her willingness to relocate for career advancement, and her family's circumstances in terms that suggested concern for work-life balance rather than evaluation of leverage points for ensuring compliance. The position involves coordinating transportation services for pharmaceutical clients throughout the Northeast region, Jennifer explained. Compensation is significantly higher than industry standards, with comprehensive benefits that include family health coverage and educational assistance for dependents. Lisa asked intelligent questions about reporting structure, advancement opportunities, and the specific types of pharmaceutical materials she'd be coordinating. Her responses demonstrated the professional competence and personal desperation that made her ideal for network integration. "We'd like to offer you the position," Jennifer concluded after 90 minutes of conversation. "Training begins next week at our facility in the Pine Barrens region. The program is intensive but provides comprehensive preparation for specialized logistics coordination." Lisa accepted immediately, shaking hands with Jennifer and agreeing to report to coordinates that would lead her to the same integration facility where I'd delivered 6 executives 3 weeks earlier. She had no idea she'd just volunteered for transformation into a component of a supernatural shipping network that moved cargo through New Jersey's back roads to destinations that existed in spaces between official maps. "Textbook recruitment," Dr. Hausman observed as we watched Lisa leave the hotel, probably planning to notify her current employer about the new position and arrange care for her teenage children during the training period. "Your assessment was completely accurate. She'll integrate smoothly into network operations." That night, I drove my personal vehicle along Clinton Road, checking mile markers and rest areas that had become as familiar as the streets in my childhood neighborhood. But now I saw them differently, as components of an infrastructure designed to collect, process, and redistribute people who made wrong choices or found themselves in circumstances that made them vulnerable to recruitment by organizations with specialized requirements. My phone buzzed with a text message from Angela. "Surgery scheduled for next month. Thank you for the insurance coverage. The doctors say this procedure will solve everything." The network's benefits package was already protecting my family, ensuring Angela received medical care that would have been financially devastating under my previous employment. Emma's college tuition was guaranteed, her future secured by my participation in operations that transformed other people's families into resources for an organization older and more extensive than I'd ever imagined. I pulled into the rest area at mile marker 14, where orange reflectors marked the spot where I'd first opened my trailer and discovered cargo that used to be people. The picnic table was still there, its weathered wood carved with initials that seemed to shift in my headlight glare. But now I understood those markings represented personnel who'd been processed through the integration system over decades of network operations. The radio in my Honda CR-V crackled to life. Regional Coordinator Torino, your recruitment performance has exceeded quotas for this evaluation period. Advancement to district management is approved, pending completion of specialized training. District management. Oversight of multiple regions, dozens of coordinators, hundreds of drivers, thousands of people processed through integration facilities that transformed human resources into components of an organization that moved through the shadows of legitimate transportation infrastructure. I'd become exactly what the network needed. A regional coordinator who understood both sides of the operation. Someone who could identify suitable candidates while maintaining the professional credibility necessary for successful recruitment activities. The photograph of Emma's dorm room was still in my wallet, but it no longer felt like a threat. Now it was a reminder of why I'd chosen cooperation over resistance, advancement over moral objections, family security over ethical concerns about operations I couldn't change, regardless of my participation level. District Manager Vincent Torino reviewed recruitment reports in his Morristown office, a converted warehouse that served as operational headquarters for 7 regional coordinators managing transportation networks throughout New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, and southern New York. 43 drivers reported to his district, delivering specialized cargo to 62 receiving stations that processed personnel for integration into organizational roles spanning multiple industries. The wall behind his desk displayed a map marking active routes with colored pins, blue for standard cargo runs, red for interactive transport, green for recruitment operations. Clinton Road appeared as a thick black line cutting through the Pine Barrens, but other routes extended the network's reach into urban areas where business conferences and professional seminars provided steady streams of candidates suitable for integration services. Angela's surgery had been successful. Emma was thriving at Rutgers, her tuition covered by educational benefits that extended to district-level personnel families. The Morristown house included a home office, 3 bedrooms, and a 2-car garage where Vincent parked both his personal Honda and a company-provided BMW that reflected his advancement within the network's management hierarchy. But something was wrong with the latest recruitment reports. Jennifer Walsh had submitted candidate evaluations from a medical conference in Princeton, identifying 12 potential recruits among attending physicians and healthcare administrators. Standard procedure called for psychological profiling, followed by staged interviews designed to assess integration suitability. However, her reports included a familiar name that made Vincent's hands shake as he read through the personnel files. Dr. Emma Torino, internal medicine resident, Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital. His daughter had attended the conference as part of her medical training, participating in sessions about innovative healthcare delivery systems and pharmaceutical logistics coordination. Jennifer's psychological assessment rated Emma as an optimal candidate for network integration. Advanced medical training, adaptable personality, financial pressures associated with residency programs, and family connections that provided additional leverage for ensuring compliance. The evaluation recommended immediate recruitment through offers of lucrative positions with specialized pharmaceutical logistics organizations that required discreet handling of experimental medications and research materials. Vincent reached for his secure phone, dialing Jennifer's direct number with fingers that felt like they belonged to someone else. She answered on the second ring, her voice carrying the professional warmth he'd learned to associate with successful recruitment coordination. "Vincent, I was hoping you'd call about the Princeton Conference candidates. We identified several excellent prospects, including one with particularly interesting family connections. Emma is off limits, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. She's not suitable for network operations. I understand your personal concerns, Jennifer replied, but district managers don't have authority to exclude qualified candidates from recruitment consideration. That decision requires approval from regional oversight. Regional oversight, the level above district management, where network executives made strategic decisions about expansion priorities and personnel allocation. Vincent had never met anyone from regional oversight, receiving instructions through encrypted communications that arrived with the mechanical regularity of organizational directives from sources beyond his security clearance. What would it take to have her removed from candidate consideration? He asked. Alternative recruitment quotas that demonstrate equivalent value to network operations, Jennifer explained. If you can identify substitute candidates with comparable qualifications, regional oversight might approve family exemption requests. Vincent looked at the map on his wall, studying routes that extended throughout the Northeast region and beyond. Red pins marked locations where interactive cargo was collected and processed, each one representing someone's child, spouse, parent, or sibling who'd been transformed into a component of operations they couldn't comprehend or escape. The system that had provided financial security for his family was now evaluating his daughter for integration into roles that would make her complicit in collecting other people's children. The network's expansion required continuous recruitment of qualified personnel, and Emma's medical training made her valuable regardless of her family connections to district-level management. His office phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, but the area code suggested regional oversight communications. District Manager Torino, he answered. Vincent, this is Regional Director Harrison. We need to discuss your daughter's recruitment evaluation and your district's performance quotas for the next operational period. Vincent looked out his office window at the tree line, where Clinton Road disappeared into forest that stretched beyond the horizon, carrying cargo toward destinations that existed in spaces between official maps. The transportation network had made him successful, wealthy, and secure. Now it wanted Emma too.